Hello class, this is Sang Lee. I am very much interested in the student involvement side of East Asian students attending George Mason University. And I would like to gauge this through a gamified mobile app that is currently available. So as you know, Mason has a growing number of international students, which accounts for almost 8.4% currently. And Mason plans to grow its international enrollment by a really large number, which is a 10% increase from 2018-19 numbers. And basically, this is 50% increase between 2016 to 2021. We currently have about 3,000 international students from more than 130 countries. There is a clear social, cultural, and academic gaps. So before they get on the plane to come to the US, they have this great expectations about making new friends, being in the center of great college life, and so on. But social reality is that that's not always the case. So as soon as they arrive in the US, they see that clear discrepancy between social expectations versus social reality. However, we also know that institutional practices, so whether Mason successfully includes them into their student bodies successfully or not, will impact both their retention rates as well as their academic performance. So I am interested in figuring out whether if a gamified mobile app or gamified mobile technology could be of help. My purpose statement is that this project will explore how elements of gamification in the form of mobile technology could enhance student involvement among East Asian students. And as you know, they're often stereotyped as antisocial, cold, cunning, quiet, and so on. So as they are infamous for being difficult with student involvement side of school administrative perspective, we would like to see if this would be of help. My research question is how, if at all, do elements of gamification through mobile technology help enhance student involvement among East Asian students? I'm going to explore my research question with two homogeneous focus group interviews. And this would be conducted before the usage of the app and then the after usage of the app. And I would like to recruit 12 students who are willing to participate. And obviously they will use this gamified app. And I will make sure that the diverse group of students will be representing most of the East Asian countries. And just to give you an idea of what these countries are, they're China, Mongolia, Korea, Japan, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Macau. And even within this diverse group of East Asian countries, I would like to strive to achieve maximum variation within this group in terms of nationality. So before we dive into the app, I would like to conduct my first focus group. And mainly this is conducted due to confirming and asking them about how they feel towards social expectations versus their social reality. And if the campus involvement will help them reduce this gap that I alluded to earlier. And also, if these, through the campus involvement, will it increase their overall student satisfaction and academic performance. So I would like to confirm those and proceed to ask them how many organizations they are currently a part of. Ask them if they would like to be involved, if they have access to help, and ask them if they enjoy learning new things through games. And lastly, if they would use a fun app to learn more about their campus. Just to provide you with a brief overview of this app that I was alluding to earlier. The name of the app is Mason Student Activity App. It is actually created by me from scratch. And its main goal is to increase international students' cultural involvement here at the Fairfax campus. And of course, the app contains fun and engaging gamification elements and the reward system. And the points that the users will be accumulating, called Mason Courage Points, or the MCP, is specifically named because it really does take international students to be engaged in cultural tasks or these activities through taking courage, through taking these leaps of faith. And I would like to reward them based on these courageous acts that they have performed to complete the cultural tasks. And hopefully I will have the students admit that this increased their involvement, and it often leads to their overall satisfaction for the university. The app will be available for the 12 students for the focus group that attended the before usage, and they will use the app for 2 weeks and perform various cultural tasks that the app suggests. It could be something very easy from giving a high five and get the 10 MCP versus getting 50 or 60 points for attending intramural sports event. So the goal is to have students complete these tasks with different difficulty levels in hopes of them learning more about the campus. So they will log the task and tell me if they like the activity or they dislike the activity and why. And we will come together later to meet as a focus group again to talk about the experience. And after 2 weeks of usage, we'll come back again for after experiencing the app. There will be another focus group to ask whether the Mason Student Activity app has allowed them to explore places that they did not know about before. And also, I'm going to ask if the tasks were appropriately challenging. Again, I mentioned that different tasks have different Mason Courage points assigned based on their difficulty level. And ask them if they feel more connected with the school now that they know more about the school, and propose them with these following statements to see if they agree with it. By socially involved and connected with institution, they're more likely to persevere and finish their degree. By acquiring more information about places and activities on campus, they find their experience more enriching and worth their financial investment, since they're paying a lot of money for their tuition. And lastly, by more socially involved and connected with their institution, are you happy? Are you happier than before? So those will be the main things that I'll be asking them for the second part of focus group. My proposed data analysis, obviously I will transcribe the interviews using the memoing technique. I will also record the sessions so that I'll review it later, so that I'm not leaning on my memory, but I'll be much more accurate with analyzing the data. And I think I would like to find out what the main theme is. So perhaps look for keywords, how they define campus involvement, how their expectations before getting on the plane versus the reality was, and what their definition is in terms of academic achievement and satisfaction. So I know that different words are used in different contexts by different people. So I would like to establish those themes earlier on. And with that, I look for thematic patterns. So in responses to their questions that I impose, and create patterns based on their responses. Of course, this is done to sort them into segments, to code them later with numbers and letters. Ultimately, to see if the app made it easier for students to be more involved on campus. The ethical consideration, of course, keeping them confidential, getting their informed consent before the studies. And I think another important thing is having the validity towards the study, establishing credibility, making sure that the interview transcripts are available, the transferability in terms of how this is built on theoretical framework of student involvement and gamification, the dependability of this focus group by perhaps explicitly describing my role here as a graduate professional assistant at George Mason University. And the data is collected in live settings where students are using the app, as well as during the focus groups and interviews. And confirmability, so meaning that I've maintained a record of my methods and procedures. And these steps, I made sure that it's described explicitly and in great detail, and obtaining feedback and review of this data analysis process with a colleague or a professor in the higher education field. So I think just having that trustworthiness within my data set would also come in very important for international students from East Asia. The study has some limitations, and two things that I can think of would be that this idea of gamification is still experimental, so it's been out there for about 10 years, but it's relatively a new idea. And the second thing is that I currently, well, I will not, have no control over whether these 12 students that I'll be recruiting will be living on campus or off campus, because a study suggests that students living on campus are much, much more likely than the commuter students to be engaged. So those two limitations in mind, I'm going to conduct these studies. Here are my selected references. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. And thank you so much for listening to my presentation.